Good morning, Journey family. Good morning, those of you who are visiting with us this morning. Thank you for joining us. Worship is a very important part, plays a very important part of our lives, and anything that we may be struggling with or going through, worship is our weapon. And so when we sing, when we pray, when we read God's word, when we just focus on Him, that's great news because we're victorious in that. So this morning I have a verse for you. It says, "So let us come boldly to the throne of our gracious God. There we will receive the mercy and we will find grace to help us when we need it most." Grace. His grace is sufficient for us all, and that grace holds us. It holds us close. And so let's focus on that. So whatever's going on in your lives, bring it before the throne of grace. Lord, thank you for this morning, and thank you for those who are joining us. And I just pray that hearts and minds will be fixed on you this morning, that we just be overwhelmed by your grace. And whatever we're struggling with, Lord, that we know that we can bring it before you, because you're the God who heals. You're the God who restores. You're the God that takes our broken pieces and makes us whole. So I pray, Lord, that that would be our focus this morning, you and only you. In Jesus' name I pray, amen. Let's worship the Lord.
Hold me now in the hands that created the heavens. Find me now where your grace runs as deep as your scars. You pulled me from the clay. You set me on a rock. You called me by your name and made my heart whole again. Lifted up, and my knees know it's all for your glory, that I might stand with more reasons to sing than to fear. You pulled me from the clay. You set me on a rock. You called me by your name and made my heart whole again. So here I stand, high in surrender. I need you now. Hold my heart now and forever. My soul cries out. Once I was broken, but you love my whole heart through. Sin has no hold on me, 'cause your grace holds me now. And that grace holds the ground where the grave did. For all my shame remains left for dead in your way. You crashed those age-old gates. You left no stone unturned. You stepped out of that grave and shouldered me all the way. So here I stand, high in surrender. I need you now. Hold my heart, and now and forever my soul cries out. Once I was broken, 'cause you love my whole heart through. holds that ground. So here I stand, high and surrendered. I need you now. Hold my heart now and forever. My soul cries out. So here I stand, high and surrendered. I need you now. Hold my heart now and forever. My soul cries out. So here I stand, high and surrender. I need you now. Hold my heart now and forever. My soul cries out. Once I was broken, but you love my whole heart through. Sin has no hold on me, 'cause your grace holds me now. Healed and forgiven. Look where my chains are now. Death has no hold on me, 'cause your grace holds that ground. Your grace holds me now. 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 God of creation, there at the start, before the beginning of time. With no point of reference, you spoke to the dark and fleshed out the wonder of light. And as you speak, 100 billion galaxies are born. In the vapor of your breath, the planets form. If the stars were made to worship, so will I can see your heart and everything you've made. Every burning star, a signal fire of grace. If creation sings your praises, so will I.
God of your promise, you don't speak in vain, no syllable empty or void. For once you have spoken, all nature and science follow the sound of your voice. And as you speak,
100 billion creatures catch your breath, evolving in pursuit of what you said. If it all reveals your nature, so will I can see your heart in everything you say. Every painted sky, a canvas of your grace. If creation still obeys you, so will I. So will I. So will I. If the stars were made to worship, so will I. If the mountains bow in reverence, so will I. If the oceans roar your greatness, so will I. For if everything exists to lift you high, yes, so will I. If the wind goes where you send it, so will I. If the rocks cry out in silence, so will I. If the sum of all our praises still falls short, then we'll sing again 100 billion times.
God of salvation, you chased down my heart through all of my failure and pride. On a hill you created, light of the world, abandoned in darkness to die. And as you speak, 100 billion failures disappear. Where you lost your life so I could find it here. You left the grave behind you, so will I. I can see your heart in everything you've done. Every part designed in a work of art called love. If you gladly chose surrender, so will I can see your heart 8 billion different ways. Every precious one, a child you died to save. If you gave your life to love them, so will I. Like you would again 100 billion times. But what measure could amount to your design? You're the one who never leaves the one behind.
So will I. Lord, in all of creation, the heavens and the earth, everything that lives on the planet and in the seas and in the skies. In all of your creation, only we get to choose whether we will be and do what we were created to be and do or not. The sun makes its course across the sky every day as it was created and ordained to do so. The animals roam the planet, the fish swim in the sea, just as they were made to do. We get to choose. And so so will I is our choice to say that we will worship you, that we will humble ourselves before you, that we will submit our lives to you, that as those who are created to love the Lord our God with our heart, mind, soul, and strength, Lord, that we begin this week setting our hearts and our minds towards that again. And to love our neighbors as ourselves. We get to choose. Lord, may it be so. Fill us with your Spirit this morning in our worship to renew us, to strengthen us, to refocus us, to infuse us with your life, to empower us to live into our so will I with all of our heart and mind and soul and strength. I pray in Jesus' name. Amen. So grateful that you're here with us again this morning, worshiping with the Journey community. Woody Allen once said, if you want to make God laugh, tell him about your plans. If you want to make God laugh, tell him about your plans. And I can't tell you how many times in my life that's felt true. It's like, man, it's like you decide to do something, you set yourself out in a direction, and as soon as you make that choice, as soon as I go that way, it's like everything falls apart. The wheels come off. If you want to make God laugh, tell him about your plans. On the other hand, Benjamin Franklin said, if you plan to fail, if you fail to plan, you are planning to fail. And to be honest, that's been true sometimes too. It's like I went in, I didn't have a plan, and things went terribly because I hadn't thought through all the details, hadn't dotted the I's, crossed the T's. Which raises a question this morning. And I wonder where you are, right? Are you a planner? Or are you someone who just kind of lets things go and trusts that that it's all going to work out in the end? To plan or not to plan? See if we can make a little adjustment here to get rid of that. To plan or not to plan? It's true, isn't it, that there are a lot of things in our life that are beyond our control. That we can be moving along and life can be going according to the plan and just the way that we want them to go. And everything can change in an instant, in a moment. And the past year has been a brutal reminder of that. That for a year now we've been dealing with the pandemic and all of the outfall from that. And it's had health complications, it's had economic implications, it's had political implications. It's like the whole world turned upside down just in a moment. And King Solomon captures this reality of our lives. In Proverbs chapter 19, verse 21, he says, many are the plans in a person's heart. And we can make plans, he says, but it is the Lord's purpose that prevails. That we can make our plans, but there is a reality that is greater than us, that is larger than us, that is the Lord's, and it will prevail. At the end of the day, his kingdom come, his will be done. And at the same time, and importantly, God created us with agency. Right? If you go back to the Genesis story and how God created us, it says we were created in his image and likeness. and that in all of creation that we were unique, and he put us in the garden, and he says to us, reign over it. Rule it. Study it. Subdue it. Right? Take all that I've created and bring it into your rule, into your reign, under the canopy of my sovereign rule over it. But God gave us agency. He put us in charge of it. And being in charge of something, I think, pretty strongly suggests that we're supposed to do something with it. And anytime we're doing something, that there's planning, there's preparation, there's execution that's a part of that. God created us with that agency. So King Solomon also says, right, your wisdom will reward you. If you plan and prepare and you carry that out, there will be a reward for doing that. To plan or not to plan. And Solomon seems to say, plan and recognize that your plans won't always work out the way that you planned them. Donald Miller is one of my favorite authors right now, and he says it this way. He says, fate, right? Things that will be, he says, is a great dance partner. It will happen. You can dance with it. But it's a lousy choreographer. It's a lousy life planner. And so we're in the last week of our series on the principle of the path. And again, through this series, I've been borrowing from a book that Andy Stanley wrote by that name, The Principle of the Path. And I borrowed from Andy Stanley because I just think he does a really good job in his book of drawing out the teachings of and the wisdom of King Solomon. And to me, that's far more important than that Andy Stanley wrote a book, is that he is drawing on the teachings of Solomon. So I want to give credit to both of them. And the general idea, kind of the focal point of this series, is that as you're making your way through life, choose your path carefully. Choose your path carefully because of this reality. Direction determines destination. Choose your path carefully because the path that you walk down and the direction you go on that path will determine where you end up on the path. And so when it comes to choosing that path, when it comes to planning your course, Solomon says, trust the Lord with all your heart. Lean not on your own understanding. When you're choosing your path in all your ways, acknowledge him and he will make your paths straight. As you travel your path, we looked at this last week. He says, pay careful attention to the direction that you've chosen, to the path that you're on. Let your eyes look straight ahead. Fix your gaze directly before you. Make level paths for your feet. Take only ways that are firm. Do not swerve to the right or to the left. Keep your foot from evil. Let your eyes look straight ahead. Fix your gaze. Pay attention, because direction determines destination, but attention determines direction. What we're paying attention to is the direction that we will go. And another one of our lessons from this is you're paying attention to the path that you're traveling on. Sometimes you're going to look down the road and you're paying attention. You're going to see danger up ahead. You're going to see, hey, I'm walking on this path and there's trouble coming. We looked at Proverbs chapter 27, verse 12, that when the prudent see danger, they're paying attention, they're looking at the path ahead. The prudent see danger, and then they take refuge, take cover. But the simple keep going, and they suffer for it. Now, all of that is about planning, right? Pay attention to where you're going, stay the path, fix your eyes. Attention determines direction. Direction determines destination. It's when you're planning and things are going according to plan. The last week, today, I want to talk about what happens when things don't go according to plan. What happens when we've done everything the right way and it doesn't turn out the way that we'd hoped it would or that we thought it should? What happens when we didn't choose the right path and now we're someplace that we didn't want to be and we have to figure out where to go? What happens when we strayed from our attention and found ourselves in a different destination than what we had hoped for? Now, the next thing I'm going to say is something you will not hear at any high school graduation speech or in any college graduation speech or maybe almost anywhere in our day and age. My kids tell me that I'm a dream squisher for saying this, but I honestly believe this is true. We cannot be everything we want to be. And we cannot do everything we want to do. I don't care how bad we want it, how hard we work at it. There are some things in this life and some things in this world that no matter how fast or how hard or how purposely we drive in a destination or in a direction, we will not arrive at the destination that we want. That we are all created in God's image and likeness, and as such, we all have eternal value in God's eyes because of who made us and because of how we were made. But that doesn't mean that in all being created equal, it doesn't mean that we're all the same. That we're equally valuable, but different. Different in our abilities, different in our opportunities, different in our temperament, different in a lot of different ways. And because we are different, we do not have equal opportunity in life, right? I am not Michael Jordan or LeBron James. I mean, look at me, right? No matter how bad I want to be the greatest NBA player in the world, it's not going to happen. It doesn't matter how hard I worked at it. If I would have dedicated my whole life to it, right? I lack the physical ability to do the things that they were able to do. And I'm not saying they didn't, it's not natural talent, right? They have natural talent that they built on and did great things with it, right? But there are some things that I cannot do despite the fact that I'm created in God's image and likeness and have eternal value in His eyes. Differences result in unequal opportunities. We're finite creatures. We are bound now by time and by space, by our need for food, by our need for sleep. We cannot do everything because of those human limitations that we have. Vince Lombardi once said, "We didn't lose the game. We just ran out of time." And a lot of games have been lost in life because we ran out of time because of our human limitations. Some paths. All right, we've been talking about direction determines destination. Where do you want your life to go? Head in that direction. But some paths are closed. We will never get there. It happens. It happens because of a way of life that we have lived. It happens because of a single decision that we have made. It happens because we chose the wrong path or ignored danger and now we're someplace we didn't want to be. It can happen because of our own mistakes or the choices that we made. It can happen to us because of the choices that somebody else made, that we will never get to a destination because of a choice that someone made long before we even had a chance to have a say in the matter. Sometimes there's someone to blame. Sometimes we can look at it and say, I will never get there because of what I did, or I will never get there because of what you did. And we can identify that, and sometimes there's no one to blame. Sometimes it's just life. It just happens. There are circumstances beyond anyone's control. And when it happens, ultimately, it doesn't really matter why it happens. We aren't where we want to go, and we can't get to where we want to be. And what do we do then? What do we do when we come to that realization that there's a destination that we long for and we will not reach it? Because it happens. And when it happens to those areas of our life that really, really matter, it's an extraordinarily hurtful experience. It's confusing. It's painful. And that experience and all of that hurt and all of the emotions that come with it and the power of those emotions leave us in a lurch. They put us in a very difficult position in ways that can tear us apart from the inside out. And sometimes one thing that gets in our way of a path or a destination that we can't arrive at, that we can't get to, and because of all the emotions that are packed into that come along with that, will lead us down a path that will even move us farther away from where we want to be. Right? Someone loses the job, and because now I'm unemployed and I'm out of work, I become depressed. And because I'm depressed, I start drinking too much. And because I start drinking too much, I start wrecking my family relationships. And now not only did I lose one aspect of my life and all the pain that came with that, I'm wrecking other components of my life. Or for all the world, I want to meet Mr. Right. But I can't find Mr. Right, and Mr. Nobody seems like a worse option maybe than Mr. Wrong. And Mr. Wrong takes in a path that's even farther from the dream. And then to add insult to injury, oftentimes God is a part of this equation. And we can look at something in our lives and a destination we want to arrive at, someplace we want to go, and we look at it and say, that's a good thing. That's a great thing. That's an admirable destination to desire to get to. It's a function of I want this because I love God, or because I want to fulfill my calling to love other people. And how can that not be God's will for my life? How can that not be something that God wants me to do? Right. How can a reconciled marriage not be what God wants? How can the healing of a mom with 3 kids from cancer not be God's design? How can a prodigal child coming home not be the will of God? Where is God in this? Why isn't he coming through for us? And when those questions surface, and all the emotions and all the confusion and all the agony that comes along with that, and the questions about God's purpose and God's will and God's design and God's presence in all of it, oftentimes the easiest, most likely conclusion that we come to is to remove God from the equation altogether. So, I don't understand. So God must not come through, or at least God must not come through for me. God can't be counted on. It leads to all kinds of agreements that we make that at the exact point when we need God the most, and in the exact places where we need God the most, that we actually distance ourselves from him. And the story doesn't originate with us, right? You can actually go back to the very beginning again, look at the Garden of Eden, right? And Adam and Eve make a choice, and that choice cost them their residence in the garden, and now they're removed from the garden. They're east of Eden, and now they have to find their way in a completely different environment than the one they were created for, because now that road, that place, that path has been closed to them. Abraham dreamed of having a son. God promised him actually that he would have a son, but God didn't deliver the promise in accordance with Abraham's dreams and expectations. It wasn't going the way that he thought it would go, so he actually intervened on God's behalf along with the suggestion of his wife Sarah, and goes off with Sarah's handmaid Hagar and has a child Ishmael, and then that leads to a whole series of events that cause division in the world that we still live with to this day. Jacob lost his son and had to deal with the grief of that experience. King David had a son conceived in an adulterous relationship with Bathsheba. And he pleaded with God on behalf of that son, but lost him. What do we do when our desired destination, when our path is closed before us? I believe that Jesus gives us the answer to that question in the Lord's Prayer. He says, when you pray, Our Father in heaven, hallowed be your name. Your kingdom come. Your kingdom come. Your will be done on earth as it is in heaven. That what Jesus says is that when you pray for the coming kingdom of God. He said it in Matthew chapter 6 in the context of the Sermon on the Mount. He says, seek first the kingdom of God above all else and live righteously, and he will give you everything you need. Saying, redirect your attention from the kingdom that you're trying to build, from the things that you've set your mind on, for the destinations that you've set your heart on. Those things are the kingdom that you're trying to make. Is your world the way that, according to you, the way that you feel like it ought to be or believe it should be. He says, seek God's kingdom above that. Paul said it this way: fix your eyes not on what is seen. Those are all the things that we're looking for, all the things that we hope for, all the dreams that we have, all the destination. Fix your eyes not on what is seen, but on what is unseen. What's not seen? The kingdom of heaven. Your kingdom come. He continues. Your will be done. David would see his family come to near ruin because of decisions, because of choices that he made in his life. Right? Going back to this quick story, David had many wives and he had many children. And because he had many wives and many children, he had a lot of half-children. And there's a story that one of his sons had a longing for one of his half-sisters. When he couldn't have her, he took her and raped her. One of her full brothers took offense because David didn't do anything on behalf of his sister, and then took revenge upon are you following this, right? The son who didn't, who violated his sister, and ultimately led to an insurrection, a coup of Absalom Tamar's brother, who was violated, against David. And now he's losing his kingdom to his son because he failed to act, on behalf of his daughter, because he failed to do the right thing. And so David is on the threshold of losing everything. He's leaving the city so as to avoid the war. And this is from 2 Samuel chapter 15. Then David said, take the ark. This is a sign of God's presence. They were taking it out of the city with him. He says, no. Take the ark back into the city. If I find favor in the Lord's eyes, he will bring me back and let me see it in his dwelling place again. But if he says, I am not pleased with you, then I am ready to let him do to me whatever seems good to him. David had a plan, and his plan didn't work out. Now his kingdom is falling apart. But as he leaves the city, his prayer is this: let God's kingdom come, let God's will be done. He's releasing his desire. And he's not doing it in a fatalistic way. He's not saying, God, you're going to do whatever you're going to do anyway, so it doesn't really matter, so just do whatever you're going to do and let the pieces fall where you. David is essentially saying, he's praying this: God, I want what you want more than I want what I want. Your will be done. I want what you want more than I want what I want. Now, that's not an easy prayer to pray. And there have been times in my life when I couldn't pray that prayer. I could not in good conscience say, God, I genuinely, truly want what you want more than I want what I want. I'm going to give you a prayer that comes before that prayer that sometimes can help us get to that prayer. It's just simply say, God, I want to want. I want to want what you want more than I want what I want. And I'm not there yet, but that's where I want to be. So God, take me from where I am to that place where I will want what you want more than I want what I want. It is the prayer that Jesus prayed in the Garden of Gethsemane. God, Father, if you are willing, take this cup from me. Yet not my will be done, but yours. Is to release our will for the kingdom that we're trying to create to God and to his kingdom and to his purposes on earth. God, let your kingdom come. Let your will be done on earth. As much of heaven as we can have on earth, God, let it be so now. I believe if you seriously lean into, pray for, seek God's wisdom and understanding and counsel, maybe with the help of a spiritual guide or a counselor, that what you will find in your life, and I've seen this played out over and over and over again, that the assault against your heart comes precisely at the point of that unique glory in which you were created to bear God's image. That the greatest heartache, heartbreak in your life is at the exact place and place of meaning and significance for what you were created. In the movie, Mr. Holland's Opus, Mr. Holland has a dream of becoming a famous composer. It's his passion, it's his desire. But aspiring composers don't make a lot of money. So he becomes a high school music teacher. And he spends his whole life waiting for that break, waiting for that opportunity to become a famous composer. And all along, he's teaching high schoolers music. And because he's not living his dream, he's living a life of bitterness and resentment and agony that he's projecting onto his wife and that he projects onto his son. But all the while, he's transforming and changing these kids' lives that he's teaching in school. And at the end of the movie, there's this revelation, and it's spoken to him by one of his former students who says, you think your life is a failure because you never accomplished this great dream that you had. But in reality, your life has transformed all of our lives. And so, illustration, right? At the very point at which he felt like a failure, God was actually in that place on earth, manifesting his presence, transforming people's lives. Paul says in Romans 8, in all things we know God works for the good of those who love him, who have been called according to his purpose. It doesn't say that God causes everything to happen, but that God uses everything for his purposes. And so to pray, your kingdom come, your will be done on earth. God, where are you at work right now in my life? And especially uniquely at the places of my heartache and my heartbreak where you are doing something that's maybe bigger, less than what I had hoped, and larger than what I had dreamed of. God, how do you want to redeem my broken heart and my dreams and the dead ends that I've run into in my life to accomplish your purposes in the world? Is there something you want to reclaim for my good and for your glory on earth as it is in heaven? C.S. Lewis says, if we find ourselves with a desire that nothing in this world can satisfy, the most probable explanation is that we were made for another world. We are not at home. This is not our final destination. And at the end of the story, Jesus says, all that has been lost will be restored. That everything that's broken will be made new. The renewal of all things. The renewal of all things. David, again, going back to King David, when he had his son with Bathsheba, and the son was, because of David's sin, going to die. And he pleaded with God, fasted, prayed, begged for his son's life to be spared. So much so that when his son actually died, they thought David might kill himself. But when they found David after he'd gotten the news that his son had died, David had lifted himself up. And he made this statement. When he was still alive, I thought that God may have mercy, but now that he is dead, he says this. He says, I will go to him, but he will not return to me. He says, this road is closed to me, but it is not the final chapter in the story, because one day I will go to him. I will be restored to him. Paul says our present sufferings, the things that we're going through right now, they're real, they're agonizing, they hurt, they're painful, but they're not worth comparing with the glory that will be revealed in us. They're not worth comparing with the glory that will be revealed in us. I once, people have often said, right, that sometimes Christians can be so heavenly minded that they're of no earthly good. Right? We're so caught up in the sweet by and by and what's going to happen when we go to heaven and what have that we like are escaping the realities of the world that we live in. I think being heavenly minded is not the problem that we face, that we encounter. That in fact, it is only when we are heavenly minded that we can be of any earthly good. If we're only earthly minded, what we will end up doing is going back to that place of we're going to do everything we can to build our kingdom here. We're going to do everything we can to make life work to the best of our ability because we know we were created for meaning and significance in life and for fullness of life. And we're going to pursue it or kill ourselves trying. But we know that this story and the closed roads that we run into and the dead ends that we face are never the final story. We can press on, we can continue on in this life, continuing to make a difference in the world, albeit maybe different than we had hoped of or dreamed of. It doesn't look like what we had, but we know that in the end, all things will be made new. It is in that place that we can live boldly and courageously and faithfully and obediently through all the hardships and the struggles and the challenges and the difficulties of this life. There are roads that are closed. For now. But Jesus promises all things will be made new. So, some of you right now are in a place in your life where it seems like all the things that you had been heading towards, all the things that you had been believing, all the things that you had desired, all the things that you had worked so hard to get to, and the things that have happened in the past year, the things that are going on in your family, the things that are going on in your marriage, or the things that are going on with your kids, and it feels like everything is lost. Jesus says, when you pray, our Father. You're not an orphan. You're not alone in this. You're not forgotten or forsaken. Our Father. Invite him back into the story. Welcome him into the challenges, even the deepest struggles and the heartache. Our Father in heaven, right? He reigns over all of creation. Your kingdom come. Your will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Jesus, you taught us to pray these words and repeated them so many times that they can almost just be rote. And the reality is that they are an invitation and a call to a completely different realm of life and kind of existence. And we are here by your design and according to your will, created with agency. God, I pray that this message wouldn't take anybody out of living into the dreams that you've set in their hearts and their minds and spirits and continue to work towards those things. And when we come to those places where the road is closed, give us faith that is not of this world to continue on in this world with all the hope of a coming kingdom. I pray in Jesus' name, amen. Again, so grateful that you are worshiping with us via the online format, and want to continue to invite you to join us each Sunday. You can like us on Facebook. You can share our services and invite other friends and family members to join us in worship. It's a great way of inviting others to a place of hope and of belonging and connection, and to a place where they can hear, to worship together with others and hear words that speak to the truth of their lives and the truth of God's love. I encourage you to do that. Thank you to those of you who support the mission of the journey through your financial support. You can continue to give to the journey or begin giving by using the link that is posted on the Facebook feed or by going to our website, thejourneyatmcc.org. You can also fill out prayer cards, submit prayer requests on our website, and also submit your contact information in that location as well. We would love to walk with you on your journey, to support you, to pray with you, to pray for you. And so all that information, I think, is being flashed on your screen somewhere right now. And so please use that as God leads you. And also, finally, we're 2 weeks out, 13 days out from our next food pantry distribution. Thank you to those who have supported, and there's going to be a list of items that we're collecting for our next distribution. I believe the date is February 13th, so a couple weeks coming up. And greatly appreciate your contribution to our efforts to support our community through these difficult times. So thank you. I'm going to turn it over to our worship team, and God bless you.
Oh, how sweet did you gaze on my perilous heart, to befriend me to my bitter end and carry the burden. For it's greater than my failures, you prevailed in pure love. To be found in the depths of your heart, as good as forgiven. Oh, how you graced that cross where Jesus died and death took the loss. Wild as the flood, gates of heaven flung wide open within His scars. Mine is the life you raised, yours the glory that took down that grave. Bright as the sun, almighty in love, God forever your kingdom come. Oh, how sweet is the sound of a heart drenched in grace, rising up from the ashes in praise, alive to your greatness. Hope has praise and His mercy through the terrible night. How you blaze through the darkness I fight, bright as the morning. Oh, how you graced that cross when Jesus died and death took the loss. Wild as the flood, gates of heaven flung wide open within His scars. Now mine is the life you raised, yours the glory that took down that grave. Bright as the sun, almighty in love, God forever your kingdom come. My heart burns wild in my chest, in all of your heart, in all that you are, let your praise run wild on my breath. In all of your heart, I'll sing it again. Oh, my heart burns wild in my chest. In all of your heart, in all that you are, let your praise run wild on my breath. In all of your heart, I'll sing it again till my heart beats out of my chest. I'll sing of your love in all of your heart till your praise is all I have left. I'll sing of your love again and again till my heart beats out of my chest. I'll sing of your love in all of your heart till your praise is all I have left. I'll sing of your love again and again. Bright as the sun, let us see your kingdom come. Bright as the sun, have your way, your kingdom come.
Go with God's grace. Walk and live in love and the power of his Spirit. Go in peace, but not to pieces.